Welcome to the next part of chemistry chapter atomic structure. In today's video we are going to talk about the structure of atom in detail, and also we are going to learn about some terms related with the subatomic particles of an atom. Okay, now we have understood the whole process, the whole you can say the history behind the discovery of the subatomic particles, starting with electrons and then protons and then the nucleus, and the position of electrons, or how do they revolve, or how the atom is, you can say, stable, and finally the neutrons in the last video, in the last two videos basically. So today we are going to talk about a bigger picture, which gives us, you can say, a greater or a bigger understanding regarding what an atom actually is. Okay. Now we all know by now that atom is built up of a number of subatomic particles. Okay. Let's see what they have to say. Modern theories about the atom include the existence of over 200 subatomic particles such as positron, neutrino, antineutrino, and so on. So just imagine we were at number 3, that is 3 subatomic particles: electrons, protons, and neutrons, right? But we are, in the modern theories, we are looking at more than 200 subatomic particles, namely positron, neutrino, antineutrino, and quarks, and so many. But these are part of modern or quantum physics. These are not part of your the basic, you can say, basic science or classical physics, or whatever you want to call it. You're studying chemistry right now, so basic chemistry, yeah, they are not part of uh, the uh, the the basics which you are studying right now, so you don't have to worry about them. Okay, so we know that there are electrons, protons, and neutrons inside an atom, and they are there for sure. It's not that they are also not there, they are there, definitely there. And to understand the, you can say, advanced physics or advanced you can say structure of atom, you must understand what are these electrons, protons, and neutrons. So electron has a symbol of E, whose superscript is 0, that is its mass, and subscript is -1, which is its charge, or it is also denoted by E minus. Its charge is -1. Its mass is 1 upon 1840 times the mass of a proton in atomic mass unit, and in grams its mass is 9.1 into 10 raised to -28 grams. Proton is denoted by H11. See, proton is nothing but a hydrogen nucleus. A hydrogen nucleus contains only one proton, no neutron. And if you talk about just hydrogen nucleus without its electron, then it is proton. So its mass is 1 and charge is +1. Okay. 1 atomic mass unit is its mass, charge is +1 electronic unit, and its mass in grams is 1.6 into 10 raised to -24 grams. Neutron is denoted by N10, where 0 is its charge and 1 is its mass in AMU. In grams, its mass is 1.6 into 10 raised to -24 grams. Not exactly as equal to proton, little greater than proton, but that's okay. You can, that's all right. If you can, you want, you can compare their masses and you can tell that they both have same masses. Doesn't make any difference. Okay. There are two structural part of an atom. Two structural part of an atom. The nucleus, which is in the center and which is extremely small, relatively in size with in comparatively in size with the size of the whole atom. That means the nucleus is situated in the center part and it's a very dense part. And the empty space in which there are imaginary paths in which the electrons revolve, which are known as orbits or shells. Okay. Nucleus contains protons and neutrons, collectively called nucleons. You might want to note that down. Neutrons and protons are collectively called nucleons. They are found in the central part or nucleus of an atom, and orbits are the imaginary paths where electrons revolve with fixed velocity, which has got fixed energies around the nucleus. Okay, the first term associated with an atom, how to identify an atom, how to identify different atoms of different element with the help of their atomic number. Like in your classroom, every student has their roll number. In the similar way, in periodic table, every atom of every element is known by its atomic number. So what is an atomic number? An atom of an element has its own characteristic number, its own roll number. That is the number of protons in its nucleus, which is equal to the number of protons in its nucleus, which distinguishes it from the atoms of other elements. This characteristic number, which is the number of protons, is called the atomic number of the element. Atomic number is denoted by capital Z. The atomic number is therefore equal to the number of electrons in the atom of an element, as well uh, since in a neutral atom. Okay, just a moment. What did they say? The atomic number is therefore equal to the number of electrons in the atom of an element as well, since in a it is a neutral atom. Yes, correct. So since atom is electrically neutral, the number of protons are also equal to the number of electrons. And since the number of protons and electrons are equal, the atomic number is also known as is also equal to number of protons, which is equal to the number of electrons. Okay, the number of protons gives the total positive charge present in the nucleus of an atom. The number of protons gives the total positive charge present in the nucleus of an atom. The atomic number of an element, the atomic number of an element is the number of protons present in the nucleus or the electrons present in its neutral atom or positive charge in the nucleus of its atom. That is the atomic number of the element. Okay, symbolic representation of an element. So an element is represented like this. The symbol of the element is X. The superscript is the mass number. I'll tell you what mass number is. The subscript that is written in the bottom is the atomic number. For example, Cl3517. Now 35 is the mass number of chlorine, 17 is the atomic number of the chlorine. Okay, now what we already know that atomic number is equal to number of proton, which is equal to number of electron. So Z is equal to P is equal to E. But what is this mass number? So mass number of an element is the total number of protons and neutrons present in its nucleus. The sum of protons plus neutrons. Mass number is denoted by capital A. Mass number, however, is a whole number approximation of the atomic mass calculated in atomic mass unit. So actually the atomic mass unit is in decimals, but when you round it off to a whole number, it becomes the mass number. Okay, for example, chlorine has a mass number of 35. Okay, so we can say that mass number is number of neutrons plus number of protons. A is equal to N plus P. Okay, so how you find the number of neutrons? Number of neutrons N is equal to A minus P. P is the number of protons, which is equal to the atomic number, so you can say A minus Z. So mass number or mass number minus atomic number is number of neutrons. Please remember this formula. See here also they have found the number of neutrons, which is mass number minus atomic number. 35 minus 17, which is 18. Okay, I'll give you I'm sure that you need some more examples. Let's look at some more examples. Okay, so we'll look at some more examples of elements. and find their atomic number and the mass number and the number of protons, electrons and neutrons. Okay, the first example is hydrogen. Hydrogen has a mass of 1 and atomic number is also 1. Okay, so what does this represent? This says that the atomic number of hydrogen is 1, the mass number of hydrogen is 1, the number of protons in hydrogen is 1, the number of electrons in hydrogen is 1, and the number of neutrons, which is mass number minus atomic number, that is 1 minus 1, which is 0. It does not have any neutrons. Okay, let's talk about helium. Helium has a mass of 4 and its atomic number is 2. So the atomic number is 2. It's always written in the subscript. Mass number is written in the superscript, which is 4. Number of protons, which is equal to the uh, atomic number, which is 2. Number of electrons, which is always equal to the number of protons, that is also 2. Number of neutrons, which is mass number minus atomic number, which is 4 minus 2, which is 2. Right? So if you know the symbol, of an element with its atomic number and mass number, you can figure out all the things. You can find the number of protons, electrons and neutrons. That's what you need to learn. Okay, so I'm going to take few more examples to make it very clear to you. Okay, next I'm going to talk about, let's say, oxygen. Oxygen has mass number of 16 and atomic number 8. Okay, so the atomic number is 8, the mass number is 16. So we can say that the number of protons is equal to the atomic number, which is 8, number of electrons, which is equal to the number of protons, which is also 8, and number of neutrons is equal to mass number minus atomic number, that is 16 minus 8, which is equal to 8. Clear? So that's all about oxygen. Now let's talk about let's say nitrogen. Okay, nitrogen has a mass of 14 and atomic number is 7. Okay, so nitrogen's atomic number is 7, its mass number is 14, its number of protons is equal to the atomic number, which is 7, number of electrons is equal to the number of protons, which is also 7. Number of neutrons is mass number minus atomic number, 14 minus 7, which is also 7. Okay, now let's take example of some metals. How do you feel about that? We have not talked about any metals till now. Okay, let's take an example of let's say sodium. Sodium has a mass of 23 and its atomic number is 11. Okay, in some books you might see that it is written as 2311 or it is written as 2311. Doesn't make any difference. Different books have different writing styles. The superscript remains the mass number and the subscript remains the atomic number. Okay, doesn't make any difference. So the atomic number is 11 and the mass number of sodium is 23. That means the number of protons in sodium is equal to the atomic number 11. Number of electrons is equal to the number of protons 11. Number of neutrons is mass number minus atomic number 23 minus 11, which is 12. Right, so you must be wondering that how will remember all this, because we don't know the atomic numbers and mass number. We have a list, don't worry. In your textbook also there must be a list of all the elements with their respective mass numbers and atomic numbers. So memorize uh, you must memorize symbols and atomic number and mass number of elements 1 to 20. Now you must be wondering what is 1 to 20. This 1 and 20 are nothing but the atomic numbers. Okay, like I told you, the roll number 1 is hydrogen and roll number 20 is calcium. So 1 to 20, all the 20 elements, their symbols, their atomic number and mass number you must memorize, so that you can express these 1 to 20 elements in this format, in this standard form. And if you can express them in this standard form, you can easily find out their atomic number, which you already know, their mass number, their number of protons, electrons, neutrons, which is, you can say, compulsory. Okay, you cannot do anything without that, because if you memorize these you can say relations, then you can easily figure out the next topic, which is electronic configuration. Okay, so now this is clear, what is atomic number and what is mass number, right? Okay, now let's talk about Bohr-Bury scheme. What is Bohr-Bury scheme? It is the principle on which the distribution of electrons in orbits is based. The distribution of electrons in the orbits is based on Bohr-Bury scheme. So distribution of electrons in different shells is called electronic configuration. Okay, distribution of electrons in different shells or orbits of an atom. It was suggested by Bohr, Niels Bohr and Bury. I think John Bury or someone. Okay, so there are few rules. There are a few rules. Okay, we must memorize these rules, and questions on based on these rules can also be asked. So the distribution of electrons in different shells is called electronic configuration. They might also ask you the definition of electronic configuration. Electrons are not just scattered in this circular paths around, imaginary paths around the nucleus. They are distributed following a specific order or a law or a principle or a rule. Without rule, nothing happens in science. So there is a rule with which these electrons are distributed around the nucleus of any atom. Okay, so this method was suggested by Niels Bohr and Bury. The following rules are followed for writing the number of electrons in different energy levels or shells. Number one, the maximum possible number of electrons in a particular shell is given by the formula 2n square, where n denotes the serial number of that shell. Like K shell has 2 electrons. How? See, the formula which gives the number of electron in a particular shell is 2n square, where n is the number of shell. So in K shell, remember that in yesterday's class, in last video, I told you that the shells were named K, L, M, N, O, P and so on, or they were numbered 1, 2, 3, 4. So K is number 1. L shell is number 2 shell, M shell is number 3 shell, and so on. So how many electrons can be accommodated in the first shell or K shell? Okay, it is given by the formula 2n square, where n is the number of shell. Now we know that number of shells is 1. The first shell has how many electrons? 2 into 1 square. See, because n is replaced by 1. N denotes first shell. Okay, so 2 into 1 square. Now 2 into 1 square is 2 into 1, which is 2 electrons. So the first shell always can occupy maximum of 2 electrons. What about the second shell? Second shell is also known as L shell. So formula is 2n square. Formula is 2n square. In the place of n, we will put 2 because we are talking about the second shell. So we'll put 2 over here. 2 multiplied by 2 square, 2 into n square, or 2 into 2 square, that is 2 into 4, that is 8 electron. That means the second shell can consist maximum of 8 electrons. Third shell is M shell. M shell has how many electrons in it? It has 2 into 3 square, that is 2 into 9, that is 18 electrons. Third shell has how many electrons? 18 electrons. Fourth shell, N shell, has how many electrons? 2 into 4 square, because it's the fourth shell, right? So fourth shell, N shell, has got 2 into 4 square, 2 into 16, that is 32 electrons, and so on. So you can easily find out how many electrons, maximum electrons, can be accommodated in the seventh shell. Can you guess that? For seventh shell, you find, for finding the number of electrons which can be accommodated in the seventh shell, you will do 2 into 7 square, that is 2 into 49, that is how many electrons? 98 electrons. But do seventh shells exist? Do they exist? That is the question. So yeah, let's not go there because we have not yet studied about the periodic table and how many shells can be there in all, because we know that there are only 118 elements known till date. So we don't know whether 7 shells are required or not. Yeah, but up to 4, 5 or 6 shells we can easily figure out, we can easily find out the number of electrons which can be accommodated in that particular shell. Okay, using the formula 2n square. There is no doubt in this, right? And still, if you have a doubt in this, we are going to look at examples. So don't worry. Just remember the first rule before we go ahead. The first rule says the maximum number of electrons which can be accommodated in a given shell is given by the formula 2 into n square, where n is the number of serial number of that shell. Second, electrons are not accommodated in a given shell unless the inner shells are filled. In other words, shells are filled in stepwise manner. Beautiful rule. Shells are filled in stepwise manner. Before you fill a shell completely, you cannot fill the outer shell. You cannot start filling the outer shell. Once you start filling a shell, once you start filling a shell, you fill a given shell first completely, then you move on to the outer shell or the other shell, then you move on to the next shell, and so on. Okay, if you are filling the first shell, you have to fill it completely. That means the first shell should have 2 electrons, and then only the remaining electrons can be filled in the second shell, and then the third shell. Now wait, some people might be thinking that, do we do that? Do scientists fill the shells of orbits of an atom? How could they do that? See, we don't do it. We don't do it. The nature does it, or it is already like that. Atoms already exist in this particular manner. So what you are doing is you are just figuring out that how the electrons are distributed. For that, you need to find out the number of electrons in each shell. And for doing that, you need to follow this rule. Like, you know, the atomic number of certain compound, certain element, I'm sorry. If you know the atomic number of certain element, atom of a certain element, then if you want to find out how electrons are distributed, you need to follow these rules given by Niels Bohr and Bury. Okay. Third rule says that the outermost shell of an atom cannot accommodate more than 8 electrons, even if it has the capacity to accommodate more electrons. For example, arrangement, electronic configuration is also correct word. Electronic configuration in calcium having 20 electron is, okay, let's arrange the 20 electrons shell wise. Okay, according to the first rule, in the first shell there can be 2 electrons maximum. So out of 22 electrons I fill in the first shell. What about the second shell? Second shell has maximum of 8 electrons. So in the second shell there goes 8 electrons. So we have already filled first and second shell, in which we have filled 2 plus 8, that is 10 electrons, in which we have filled 2 plus 8, 10 electrons. Okay, how many electrons are remaining? See, there are 20 electrons in calcium atom. So 10 more electrons are remaining. Now third shell, according to the rule, can occupy maximum of 18 electrons, and we have 10 electrons left. Wow, so job is done. So it could be 2 electrons in the first shell, 8 electrons in the second shell, and 10 electrons in the third shell. Job is done. But no, the third rule overrides, you can say, yeah, overrides the first rule. The third rule is above the first rule. The third rule says that if you have an outermost shell, and this is definitely the outermost shell, the third shell, it cannot have more than 8 electrons. So how many maximum electron can an outermost shell has? It can have maximum of 8 electrons. So I will do a little rearrangement. So I will put 8 electrons in the outermost shell. But wait, I have 20 electrons in the atom of calcium. I have filled 2 electrons over here, 8 electrons over here, 8 electrons in the third shell, which was originally the outermost shell. So I have already filled 18 electrons. How many electrons are left now to be filled? 2 electrons. So these 2 electrons, since it cannot be filled in the third shell, otherwise it would take this electronic configuration, which is not allowed by the third rule. So I would put that 2 electron in the final shell, that is outermost shell, that is the fourth shell now. So this is not possible, and that's why this second electronic configuration was created, which is more correct, more you can say accurate according to the rules made by Niels Bohr and Bury. Do you understand? So always remember, the number of electrons which can be accommodated in each shell is given by the formula 2n square, where n is the number of orbit, and each orbit has to be filled stepwise. You cannot fill the outer orbit before you fill the inner orbits, and the outermost orbit cannot have more than 8 electrons. So if you have 10 electrons left, there is a problem. You need to put 8 electrons in the outermost shell, and the remaining 2 electrons can be put in the next shell, that is the outermost shell now, which is created due to this rule. Okay, so what makes this shell now, third shell now, that is not the outermost shell? You know what it is known as? It is known as penultimate shell. What is it known as? Penultimate shell. Penultimate means second last shell. Okay, so there is a rule about penultimate shell. Let's see if we find that. Okay, third rule is written over here as well. What they have written, let's see. The maximum capacity of M shell, that is the third shell, is 18 electrons, but only 8 electrons are filled in it. This is due to the fact that the elements become stable only after acquiring 8 electrons in the outermost shell. Okay. Fourth rule, the outermost shell of a chemically stable atom can accommodate a maximum of 8 electrons, except helium, which has only one shell, and that's why it can accommodate only maximum of 2 electrons. So all the noble gases, stable atoms, can have 8 electrons, they do have 8 electrons in their outermost shell, except helium. Helium has 2 electrons, but still we can call helium stable. You know why we can call helium stable? Because it has just one shell. So the first shell, we know by the formula 2n square, can accommodate maximum up to 2 electrons. And how many electrons does helium have in its outermost shell? It has 2 electrons. So maximum of 2 electrons can be filled in the outermost shell of helium, and it has 2, and that's why helium is also considered a noble gas. Okay, and all noble gases are such kind of elements which do not react with any other elements because they have stable electronic configuration. And we'll talk about the stability of an atom in the next part, that is you can say chemical bonding. Okay, let's talk about let's take an example and talk about the distribution of electrons in an atom. Let's take an example of magnesium atom and understand how electrons are distributed in magnesium atom. Now, starting with, if you're talking about magnesium atom, let me give you an idea. If you're talking about magnesium atom, then you must know the symbol of magnesium, Mg, and its atomic number, which is 12, and its mass number, which is 24. If you know this much, then the job becomes easier. How? Now you can figure out what is the atomic number, sorry, what is the mass number, 24, what is the atomic number, 12, what is the number of protons, which is equal to the atomic number, which is 12, what is the number of electrons, which is equal to the number of protons, which is 12 as well. What are the number of neutrons? Although they are not required, but still I would write. Uh, for finding electronic configuration, number of neutrons are not required, but still I would find. Uh, at mass number minus atomic number, 24 minus 12, which is 12. Now I want to draw the structure of magnesium atom, but before that I would want to find the electronic configuration of magnesium. So magnesium has an electronic configuration of, let's say, the number of electrons in magnesium is 12. So the first shell of magnesium will have how many electrons? Answer yourself. It will have 2 electrons. Why? Because the rule says, rules of electronic distribution or electronic configuration, made by whom? Made by Bohr and Bury. They say that any atom can have maximum of 2 electrons in its first shell. That is by the formula 2 into 1 square. 2 into 1, that is 2. Okay. In the second shell, now see, out of 12 electrons, we have already distributed 2. So remaining 10. Okay. In the second shell, we know that the formula 2n square says that there can be maximum of 8 electrons. Let's put 8 electrons. We have 10 left. So out of 10, 8 I put in the second shell. So I have already distributed 10 electrons and I have already filled the first two shells completely. Now I can move to the third shell. Okay. Now how many electrons are remaining to be distributed? See, there were 12 electrons in all, and out of these 12 electrons, I have distributed 2 and 8, that is 10 electrons, and 2 more are remaining. So let's put these 2 electrons in the outermost shell. That's it. That's it. This is the electronic configuration of magnesium. That's it. Now we can draw magnesium. Okay, so let's draw magnesium. First, I'm going to start with the magnesium nuclei. Let me draw a little bigger nuclei. Okay, in the nucleus, I'm going to write the number of nucleons, which I already know. So, what are the number of protons? Protons are 12. What are the number of neutrons? Neutrons are also 12. So, this is very important to show that how many protons and neutrons does it have. Okay, so that's the first shell. Okay, now you must be thinking that why did I make this? Why did I make the nucleus so large? Okay, let me make it a little small. I just made it large just for the representation purpose. Okay, it is not this large. Nucleus is very small. We understood yesterday. If there is a football field, in the middle of football field, a small p is placed. That p gives you the ratio of the nucleus with the size of an atom, which is comparable to the whole size of football field. So in the first shell, there are 2 electrons. Let me distribute 2 electrons. So this will be the first electron, and this will be the second. Okay, let me make the first shell also a little smaller. Okay, let me make one more shell, the second shell. Okay, in the second shell, there are how many electrons? There are 8 electrons. Let me make 8 electrons. 4, 5, 6, 7, 8 electrons. Okay, in the third shell, how many electrons are there? Okay, so this is the third shell, and in the third shell, it shows the electronic configuration shows that there are 2 electrons. So one I'm going to put over here and one over here. Now, do you understand that how electrons are distributed in any atom with an example, right? So even if you don't know anything about an atom, but if you just know its symbol and its atomic number and mass number, then you can easily draw the structure of that atom with proper electronic configuration. Okay, so these are some orbital diagrams for the atoms of the first 20 elements which I was talking about, starting with hydrogen, ending with calcium. Their electronic configuration, their valency, I'll tell you what is valency, their symbol, as you can see here at the top, there is symbol, there is atomic number, mass number, everything is given to you. So this is a ready reference available to you. So if any questions are any question are is asked regarding the the symbol or atomic number or mass number or electronic configuration of first 20 elements, you should be able to answer. So you must memorize these details. Okay, now some students might have this question that what about atomic number 21, that is the atom which is which comes after calcium. So you don't have to bother about that till you pass class 10th. Okay, from class 11th onwards you go into that group. So they have a certain different rules for electronic configurations, and those elements are known as transition elements whose two outermost shells are incomplete. Okay, and we don't study about transition elements as of now, so you just focus on first 20 elements of the periodic table which you see in front of you. So the main features of structure of atoms. Atoms of all elements, let's do this small revision. Atoms of all elements except hydrogen are made up of three fundamental subatomic particles: electrons, protons, and neutrons. Hydrogen atoms lacks neutron. It doesn't have neutron. The nucleus is located at the center of the atom. It contains protons and neutrons which account for the total mass of that atom. The nucleus is positively charged due to the presence of protons in it. The electrons are outside the nucleus and have negligible mass. The number of electrons in an atom is equal to the number of protons in it. Hence, the atom is electrically neutral. The electrons revolve rapidly in fixed circular paths around the nucleus. These circular paths are called energy levels, shells, or orbits. The atoms of different elements contain different number of electrons, protons, and neutrons. And the characteristic number of atom of each element is its atomic number, that is the roll number, right? These, this table which you see, are the electronic configuration, atomic number, mass number, number of neutron, and number of protons, number of electrons, element symbol, its metal or non-metal, everything is mentioned over here for first 20 elements, and even there are 3 noble gases. So this, if you want, I can share the whole PDF with you. That was a small second part. Okay, let's do this third part as well. and the next part, that is chemical bonding, will be shared with you in a separate video which is already ready with me. So I'm going to share two lectures with you today. One is about this part which I just taught you, that is about atomic number and mass number and electronic configuration, and about valence electrons. This is an important part. It's not very long. I don't know how long is it. Just a moment. Let me just figure out how long. I think my internet's not working. Just a moment. Okay, so the next term is valence electrons. Okay, in this section there are many important definitions, so I just want you to take notes of them. The first definition is what are valence electrons? What is a valence shell actually? The outermost shell of an atom is known as its valence shell. Outermost shell, valence shell. Okay, and the electrons present in the outermost shell, in the valence shell, are known as valence electrons. Hydrogen has only one electron in its outermost shell. So its valence electrons is 1. Number of valence electrons for hydrogen is 1. Similarly, carbon has 4 electrons in its valence shell, and so it has got 4 valence electrons. Okay. The chemical properties of elements are decided by these valence electrons, since they are the ones that take part in the chemical reactions. Okay, so before we go ahead, let's find some valence electrons. Yes, so we had taken these examples. So let's find the number of valence electron, and for finding the number of valence electron, we need to figure out the electronic configuration. So hydrogen's electronic configuration is just 1, and its number of valence electron is also 1. Helium's uh, outermost shell or one shell contains 2 electrons, so its electronic configuration is 2, and number of valence electron for helium is also 2. For oxygen, the number of electrons is 8, and they are distributed as 2, 6. 2 in the first shell, 6 in the next shell. So its number of valence electron is 6. For nitrogen, the number of valence electron is 2, 7. Oh, I'm sorry, 2, 5. 2, 7 is fluorine. 2, 5. So the number of valence electron is 5. Electronic configuration is 2, 5. Okay, for carbon, the mass, atomic mass is 12, atomic number is 6. So Z is 6, A is 12. So number of protons is equal to Z is equal to 6. Number of electrons is equal to number of protons, which is equal to 6. Number of neutrons for carbon is equal to A minus Z, which is equal to 12 minus 6, which is 6. Okay, now one thing you should know, that for carbon, since the number of electron is 6, the electronic configuration would become 2, 4. So number of valence electron for carbon is 4. Okay, let's find out what about sodium. Sodium has the electrons, total number of electrons 11, and therefore the electronic configuration will be 2, 8, 1, right? So number of valence electron in sodium is 1. What about magnesium? We already know the electronic configuration. Can you tell me the number of valence electrons? Yes, it is 2. Okay, so electrons present in the outermost shell is the number of valence electron. They are known as number of valence electrons. Okay, so what about valence electron? So they told you that these valence electrons are are the factors which decide the chemical properties of elements. Okay, so these valence electrons, they are the ones who take part in the chemical reaction, and that's why these valence electrons, the number of valence electrons, are very important. They decide the chemical properties of an element. The elements with the same number of electrons in the valence shell show similar properties. Those with different number of valence electrons show different properties. This we are going to study in periodic table. Elements which have valence electrons 1, 2, or 3, except hydrogen, are metals. See, hydrogen has one electron in its outermost shell. But apart from hydrogen, except hydrogen, all other elements which has 1, 2, or 3 electrons in its outermost shell, that is 1, 2, or 3 valence electrons, are metals. If you don't believe, let's look at the table and figure out. Okay, so let the hydrogen be let the hydrogen not be in this list because it's not a metal. We know it has one electron, still it's not a metal. So what about lithium? It has one electron in its outermost shell. Beryllium. What about boron? Boron is not metal. So boron is a non-metal which has three electrons in its outermost shell. So boron is also an you can say exception. Okay, lithium and beryllium are metals. What next? Okay, next comes sodium, magnesium, aluminium. Sodium, magnesium, aluminium. How many electrons in the outermost shell? 1, 2, and 3 respectively. Are they metals? Yes, definitely they are metals. What about what next? Next is potassium, calcium. Potassium, calcium. Are they metals? Yes. Why? Because they have 1 and 2 electrons respectively in their outermost shell. So they are also metals. So these three are also metals and these two are also metals. So we have 5 plus 2, 7 metals from atomic number 1 to 20. Lithium, beryllium, sodium, magnesium, aluminium, potassium, and calcium. Right? Because they have 1, 2, or 3 electrons in their outermost shell. Which are the exceptions? The exceptions are boron. It has got 3 electrons in its outermost shell, 3 valence electron, and hydrogen. It has got 1 electron, 1 valence electron, but still they are non-metals. Okay. So generally, we can say that we can use this word generally. Generally, metals have 1, 2, or 3 electrons in their outermost shell. So what do these 1, 2, or 3 electrons do? These elements can lose these 1, 2, or 3 electrons to form ions. What is an ion? Ion is an electrically charged atom or group of atoms formed by loss or gain of electrons, right? So I'll show you how an ion is formed. Let's take an example of sodium. Sodium's electronic configuration is 2, 8, 1. Now, we know that there is a situation in which the outermost shell, the valence shell, is said to be completely filled. Now look at sodium. Sodium has one electron in its outermost shell. To be completely filled, it should have 8 electrons in its outermost shell. So sodium should accept 7 electrons from somewhere to complete its outermost shell. But to accept 7 electron becomes very, very difficult for sodium. We are going to learn this in the next part. That is how ions are formed in detail. But for now, I should tell you this, that sodium chooses to lose one electron. Sodium chooses to lose one electron. It is easier for sodium to lose one electron rather than gain 7 electrons. So when it loses one electron from its third shell, only 2 shells are left in it and its electronic configuration becomes 2, 8. Now, whose electronic configuration is 2, 8? 2, 8 is the electronic configuration of neon, and sodium tries to become like neon by losing one electron. And what is neon? Neon is a noble gas. And what do noble gas do? Or what characteristic do they possess? Noble gases are inactive, chemically unreactive. They are noble, they are stable. So to achieve stable electronic configuration, sodium decides to let go of its one electron. Not only sodium, all the metals which I have marked over here, who has got 1, 2, or 3 electrons in their outermost shell, they all behave similarly. They all chooses they all choose to lose their valence electrons, which are just 1, 2, or 3 electrons. For all the metals, it is easier to lose 1, 2, or 3 electrons which are present in their outermost shell, that is their valence electrons. Okay, so metals behave in this peculiar manner. They lose electrons and they acquire positive charge. You see over here the sodium metal has acquired positive charge. Now how does this sodium metal acquire positive charge. If you look at this atomic structure of sodium, I'll explain you. So before, sodium had electronic configuration of 2 8 1, but after losing one electron, sodium has electronic configuration of 2 8. Initially sodium had 11 electrons and 11 protons. It was electrically neutral, but after losing one electron, it has got 10 electrons and 11 protons. Now do you see that sodium has got one proton more than electron, one extra proton? So this one extra proton has got a unit positive charge on it. So the whole sodium atom acquires a unit positive charge, which is known as a positively charged ion or a cation. Okay, remember this one. These elements can lose electrons to form ions, which are known as cations, which are positively charged and are called cations. So sodium atom loses one electron and gets converted into sodium ion or sodium cation. Is that clear? Okay, what about, okay, what one more characteristic? They are good reducing agent. Now I'm not going to go deeper into this reducing and oxidizing stuff over here. We will learn that in class 10th. Okay, but I want to now shift your focus to non-metals. What do non-metals have in common? Non-metals, they have 4 or 5 or 6 or 7 electrons in their outermost shell or valence shell. That means non-metals generally they do have 4 5 6 or 7 electrons in their outermost shell. For example, let's take some example. 4 5 6 7, which are these elements: carbon, nitrogen, oxygen, fluorine. Non-metal, 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 non-metal. Yes, so they are all non-metals, elements having more than 3 electrons in their outermost shell, that is 4 5 6 or 7 electrons in their outermost shell, are known as non-metals. So you might have this question in your mind, that what about neon? What about neon? What is neon? Is neon a metal or a non-metal? It is not. It is neither, actually. Neon is neither metal nor non-metal. It is actually a noble gas. Okay, so that is separate from the, you can say, categories of metals and non-metals. Okay, let's go ahead. Silicon, 4 electrons in the outermost shell. Phosphorus, sulfur, chlorine. Silicon, phosphorus, sulfur, chlorine, these all four are what? They are non-metals, right? So elements which are having 4 5 6 or 7 electrons in their outermost shell, they are non-metals. And what is their characteristic? Now see, as I told you, stable electronic configuration represents a stable metal, or a stable element. Stable element means an element which can exist on its own, which can exist independently, which can exist without reacting with atoms of other elements. So what is how to achieve this stability? So stability can be easily understood from you can say the electronic configuration of noble gases. So what is a stable electronic configuration which noble gases have? Their outermost shells are completely filled. What do you mean by outermost shells completely filled? Outermost shells, when they have 8 electrons, that is considered as a completely filled outermost shell. That means noble gases, they have their outermost shells completely filled. They do not require any electrons, and that's why they are stable. So what about metals? Yeah, metals, they don't have their outermost shell incomplete, but to make it complete or to achieve that stable electronic configuration, they donate electrons, they form cations. And what about non-metals? We know that non-metals have 4 5 6 or 7 electrons in their outermost shell. For example, chlorine has the electronic configuration of 287. It has 7 electrons in its outermost shell. It should have, ideally, to attain or achieve noble electronic configuration, chlorine should have 8 electrons in their outermost shell, but it has 7. So for chlorine, there are two options. Either it should lose 7 electrons, which are there in the outermost shell, and become 2, 8, just like sodium, just like neon, or it should gain one electron. For chlorine, it is easier to gain one electron. So chlorine gains 1 electron and achieves the stable electronic configuration of 288. Now let's see whose electronic configuration is 2, 8, 8. 2, 8, 8 is the electronic configuration of argon, and chlorine achieves the stable electronic configuration which is equal to the argon electronic configuration of argon, which has the valency of 0. Okay, argon has a valency of 0. So basically, argon is a noble gas, and chlorine also tries to become a noble gas. Chlorine also tries to achieve the stable electronic configuration just like argon. But how does it do it? It accepts 1 electron and it becomes stable. Okay, but it does not become electrically neutral, just like sodium atom was electrically neutral, but sodium cation was positively charged. Okay, similarly we can say that chlorine, see chlorine over here, it has got 17 electrons and 18 protons. Now, hey, wait, 17 protons, I'm sorry, chlorine has got 17 protons and 17 electrons. After accepting 1 electron, it has got 18 electrons and 17 protons. 18 electrons and 17 protons. Now we know that electrons are one more than the number of protons. That means the chlorine will acquire a unit negative charge, which is known as a chlorine anion, a negatively charged chlorine atom or chlorine anion with a unit negative charge. Okay, so this is how you can say the valency of the valence electrons affect the atoms. They motivate the atoms to lose or gain electrons and basically convert into achieve stable electronic configuration, and basically they acquire the electronic configuration of their nearest noble gas. And we are going to study in detail about this topic further in the next part. And they become electrically charged, that is cation or anion. Okay, metals become cations and non-metals becomes anion. Okay, so coming to the next topic. The next topic is what is valency. Valency of an element is the combining capacity of that element with other elements, and it is equal to the number of electrons that take part in the chemical reaction. So valency, if you ask me in you can say very layman's terms, valency is the number of electrons an atom loses or gains to complete its outermost shell and to achieve stable electronic configuration. That is valency. So what is the valency of sodium? Sodium has a valency of 1. Why? Because sodium loses 1 electron and achieves noble gas electronic configuration, stable electronic configuration. So its valency is 1 plus. Why plus? Because after attaining noble gas configuration or stable electronic configuration, it acquires a positive charge. Or you can say that it is letting go of its electron. When you let go of negative charge, you become positive. Yeah, so that's the idea, that's the philosophy which you have to remember. If you let go of your negativity, you become positive. That's why sodium, because it is letting go of its electron, 1 electron in the outermost shell, it is acquiring a unit positive charge, and that's why its valency is 1 plus. So what is valency? Valency is the number of electrons which are donated or accepted in order to complete the outermost shell and to achieve stable electronic configuration by any element. Okay, what about the valency of chlorine? Now chlorine accepts 1 electron to complete its outermost shell. So when chlorine accepts 1 electron in its outermost shell, it achieves the stable electronic configuration of 2, 8, 8. So its valency is 1 minus. Why 1 minus? Because it is accepting electron. How many? 1. So its valency is 1, but plus or minus? Minus. Why? Because if you accept negativity, you become negative. Chlorine is accepting negativity. What is negativity? Electron. Why is electron negativity? Because electron is a negatively charged particle and chlorine is accepting that negativity. So chlorine becomes a negatively charged ion or anion. That's why we can say that chlorine has got a valency of 1 minus. So that is the valency. Okay. So reason for a chemical activity of an atom we are going to study in the next part. Not worrying about that much right now. Isotopes. What are isotopes? Okay, now this is one important small topic which we must study about isotopes and isobars. I don't know whether they are there in your syllabus and how much they are there. But yes, I want to teach you in detail about isotopes. What are isotopes? See, it is noticed that two atoms of the same element contain the same number of protons, but they may differ in their number of neutrons. Two atoms of the same element contain the same number of protons, but their neutrons can be different. Why? Somebody might have this question in their mind. Why? It is because they occur in nature in these different forms. It is naturally so. It is not due to any specific reason. Okay, in nature we find atoms of the same element occurring with different physical properties. Some are heavier, some are lighter, some have more neutrons, some have less neutrons, but because they are atoms of the same element, they have same number of electrons and protons. We will see at the look at the example, don't worry about that. But this is how it happens in nature. However, the electrons, protons and neutrons are arranged in the same way and gives the atoms identical chemical properties. The chemical properties of these atoms are same because the number of protons and electrons are the same, but the number of neutrons are different. So that makes their physical properties little different from each other. An element showing similar chemical properties but possessing different mass is said to represent isotopy. And कौन सी टोपी? Isotopy. अच्छा, and sorry for that joke. And the variety of the atom is called isotopes. So isotopes may be defined as atoms of the same element having the same atomic number but different mass number. इसको learn कर लेना. Isotopes may be defined as atoms of the same element having same atomic number but different mass number. Isotopes may be defined as atoms of the same element having same atomic number but different mass number. Examples. Number one example, hydrogen. Number of isotopes, 3 isotopes it has. Hydrogen 1 1, hydrogen 1 2, hydrogen 1 3. What do you mean by that? Each of them has atomic number 1. Each of them has number of proton 1. Each of them has number of electron 1. But the first one has 0 neutron. The second one has 1 neutron and the third one has 2 neutrons. So this hydrogen, which has 3 different types existing in nature, this hydrogen has got 3 different names according to its isotopes. The first isotope of hydrogen is known as protium. What is protium? It has nothing to do with protein. Okay. Protium has 1 electron, 1 proton, atomic number 1, but 0 neutron. So mass number is 1. Second isotope of hydrogen is deuterium. Deuterium has 1 electron, 1 proton, 1 atomic number. See, atomic number, number of electron, proton, all same in all 3 of them. So they are all chemically same. But yes, number of neutron in deuterium is 1. So its mass number is 2, little heavy hydrogen. Tritium has a number of electron, number of proton and atomic number 1, but the number of neutrons is 2, hence the mass number is 3, little more heavier. So these are the 3 isotopes of hydrogen which are known as protium, deuterium and tritium. What about carbon? Carbon has also got 3 isotopes. And what are these 3 isotopes? See, represented like this. The first isotope of carbon has 6 neutrons. Yeah, of course, 6 electron and proton, they are common in all the 3 carbon isotopes. But yeah, first one has got 6 neutrons. second one has got 7 neutrons, and the third one has got 8 neutrons. You can calculate if you want. And then comes the curious case of chlorine. See, chlorine in our universe exists in the form of two isotopes, very, very famous. One is chlorine 3517 and second is chlorine 3717. One has got 18 neutrons and the other one, the heavier one, has got 20 neutrons. Both are chemically same. Both have got 17 electrons and 17 protons. But the one which has got the mass number as 35 has got 18 neutrons, and the other one which has got mass number 37 has got 20 neutrons. So let me acha, chalo, just study this and then we'll finish it up with the properties, with the characteristics of isotopes. So isotopes have similar chemical properties because they have same atomic number. So isotopes of an element are chemically alike. For example, chlorine atom of mass 37 undergoes the same reactions as the chlorine atom of mass 35. They have no chemical differences. Isotopes differ in their few physical properties such as density, boiling point. Physical parameters depend on the atomic mass or mass number. And because isotopes have different mass number, due to which they have boiling point and melting point and density of different values. For example, protium has a boiling point of 20.38 Kelvin and deuterium has a boiling point of 23.5 Kelvin. Not a much difference, but still. So higher the mass, higher will be its boiling point. Acha, and isotopes like tritium, the third isotope of hydrogen, and carbon 14. Carbon 14 is the third isotope of carbon. They illustrate another difference in physical property that can occur between isotopes as they are radioactive. So the property of radioactivity is exhibited by the third isotopes of hydrogen and carbon. Why are they radioactive? It is given, the reason is given over here. The extra neutrons in their nuclei cause them to be unstable. So the nuclei breaks up spontaneously, emitting certain types of radiations, and that's why carbon 14 and tritium are known as radioisotopes. The spontaneous decay of unstable radioisotopes is known as radioactivity. What are the uses of these radioisotopes? Radioisotopes or isotopes of cobalt 6027 is used in radiotherapy for treating cancer and other diseases. Carbon 14, that is radioisotope of carbon, it is used for determining the age of historical and geological material. You know, like fossils, how old is a fossil? So carbon dating process is used where radioactive isotope of carbon is used for finding the age of a fossil. An isotope of uranium is used as fuel in nuclear reactors. Very rare isotope of uranium, but still it's present in huge quantities with countries, which can destroy our Earth multiple times. An isotope of iodine is used in the treatment of goiter. You know goiter? Goiter is a disease which is due to the um, you know anomaly in the thyroid gland in your throat, and that is due to the deficiency of iodine in your body. Yes, that's in biology. Fractional atomic masses. See, some atoms can have fractional atomic masses. For example, atomic mass of chlorine, which is 35.5. Now, you must be wondering that that was never told to us. Atomic mass of chlorine was given to as 35 over here, 37 over here. Then why are they saying 35.5 over here? Because the reason is the reason for fractional atomic mass is that atomic mass of an element represents the weighted average of all the naturally occurring isotopes of that element. For example, any natural sample of chlorine, chlorine, which is naturally occurring around us, contains 75% of the lighter chlorine and 25% of the heavier chlorine. So we can say that all the chlorine existing around our planet and in the universe, it is believed that 75 percent is the lighter chlorine and 25% is the heavier chlorine. That is, these isotopes are found in the ratio 3:1. So the average atomic mass of chlorine is calculated as 35 multiplied by 3, that is the ratio of the lighter chlorine, plus 37 multiplied by 1, that is the ratio of the heavier chlorine, divided by total ratio, that is 4, which gives us 35.5. Therefore, atomic mass of chlorine atom is 35.5. So that is one very important example of isotope with its average atomic mass considered by us. And then there is one small part which is known as isobars. Okay, what is isobar? They are the atoms of different elements. See, remember, isotopes were the atoms of the same element, having same atomic number but different mass number. But isobars are the atoms of different elements with the same mass number but different atomic numbers. Since the properties of the elements depend upon atomic number, so they have different physical and chemical properties. For example, argon and calcium, they both have same mass number but different atomic number. Argon has atomic number of 18, calcium has atomic number of 20, but they both have mass number 40. Then chromium and iron. Chromium and iron, they both have mass of 54, but their atomic numbers are 24 and 26 respectively. So these are known as isobars. There are other examples also, but not important to know as of now. So we have this huge exercise 4C. All these exercises I will make you do after your current exam ends anyways. So I'm going to share it with you soon. See, we are done with this part. Now only one part is remaining, that is chemical bonding, and that also I'm going to do now. So the video will be out very soon, shared with you. So okay, yeah, after that you will be asked to do the example. So we have almost completed the chapter, the fourth chapter, which was, I consider this chapter to be the heaviest and you can say the largest in the whole syllabus of chemistry. And I hope you enjoyed it. All right, see you in the next video. Bye bye.